Welcome to Macon Memories. This is Lynda Wright at Randolph-Macon College. Today I'm here with Mr. John Clements and Mr. Tom Birdsong to talk about their time as students at the college and as their service on the Board of Trustees.
Well, I'm a little pleased to be here this morning, and Lynda, hopefully we can contribute something to these memories that you are referring to. But I became interested in the college while I was in the service. I served in the Navy from 1944 to 1946, and at the time they just were discharging people from the service quickly. I got the word in August that I would be discharged by the end of August, and I said, where am I going to school? And then I thought of my father and other members of our family that had been here. I called my dad, and I said, I'll be getting out of the service in a few weeks. Can you maybe help me get into Randolph-Macon? So I came to Randolph-Macon in September of 1946, and I loved it, and I still do. So it's been a great experience for me.
It's John Clements, and my introduction to Randolph-Macon is a little bit different from Tom. He's had a real association back to many generations. I had never been to Randolph-Macon College. I was a student at Dinwiddie High School, and Ivan Butterworth, who the three Butterworth brothers attended Randolph-Macon College, and I knew them. And Mr. Butterworth called me over the intercom one day and said he had Lambeth Clark, who was the assistant to the president at that time, and he wanted me to meet Mr. Clark. So I came down to the office and met Mr. Clark, and so after Lambert left, Ivan informed me, he said, Randolph-Macon is where I want you to go to school. And so my parents were not college graduates, and so when I went home and delivered the message that Ivan Butler thought I should attend Randolph-Macon College, that was a done deal. So my first experience on the campus was when they brought me up, carried me up on the third floor of Thomas Branch, put me in a closet, said Henry Odom was going to be my roommate, but he wasn't available at that time, and there was only one key passed out at the business office. So when Henry got back from Richmond with some of his cohort from Suffolk, it's the first time we met, and we're lifetime friends now, but I was sitting out in the hall because I couldn't get into, we had a little small room there, and of course he had chosen the top bunk, and so I ended up on the bottom bunk, which after you get on to bunk beds when you're in college, you find out that everybody lays around, lounges around on the bottom bunk. But anyway, we went off to some place out here that loaded us on a bus that night after my mother had gotten in and cleaned the room and bought my steamer trunk that she'd gone out and purchased for me. That's the only time I think that steamer trunk was overused. But we went out and we were singing Good Night Ladies. And I'm telling you right now, I was so homesick and so much ready to go home. If I'd have known which direction Carson was, I'd have suddenly gotten out there and walked right. I got on the road and walked home, I'll tell you the truth. But of course, Randolph-Macon is a far cry. And the memories and the appreciation for all the good things that have come from it is still very much a part of my life.
Well, it's very much a part of my life too, John. Having graduated in '49, a few years before ahead of you, but I feel like our friendship through the years has been one that we've kept up to date and in touch. And I, of course, had most of my working career in Texas, and but even then, I would come back occasionally. But no, I did not come back on a rape stage.
Right.
And I remember very distinctly, I had a call from Liddell Payne saying he'd like to come down and visit with me in Texas. And this was in 1980, I imagine it was. So he called and said, I said, well, that would be great. I'd love to see you. And I didn't know what he was coming for. I figured he was coming to try to raise some money, but that was a part of the deal too, I think.
Right.
But at any rate, we lived in a little town called Stephenville, Texas. And he wanted, so Connie, my wife, said, well, why don't we invite him over for breakfast tomorrow morning? I said, well, that'll be nice. So we did. And she still tells the story today, said we invited him for breakfast at, say, 8 o'clock. She looked out the front door, and here comes this good-looking man, and she said, my goodness, you should do a part of whatever he's asking for. So he was a very handsome guy and still is. So at any rate, he extended an invitation to me to become a Board of Trustee member. And that, I think, John, is when we really began to renew our relationship.
Right. Right.
Because
really
as of this date, I've been in Texas some 44 years, but I'm still now spending time between Virginia and Texas. But that was how I got on the board, and excuse me, the Board of Trustees went on my calendar. Meetings went on my calendar when it was announced the dates, and I always tried to be here on a regular basis. I think the only time I missed in my tenure on the board was when I was sick one time, and that was when Liddell and Bill and John met, what was the lady's name? McGrath.
Right.
Gave the money for the library.
That's exactly
and
right.
we had a weekend, and I had to call and cancel. I was sick.
Right. We met in Roanoke to celebrate the fact that she was coming on our board, and also going to be very, very gracious on many things, but especially the extension to the library at that time. She was a very attractive lady, and you said she was kept round off Macon in many, many ways, but a very attractive lady, and we miss her like we miss a lot of others along the way.
You want to talk about how you got on the board, too?
Oh, yeah. Well, I received a call from Judge Hodges, William Hodges. And Bill, and of course, I thought Bill was trying to play a joke on me, as he normally did on many occasions. Just 2 or 3 weeks before that, he'd gotten on the telephone, and it sounded like the President of the United States informing me that he was on Air Force One, and he really wanted to set up an appointment with me in Richmond. And I was gullible enough to fall for that. So 2 weeks later, when he called up, wanted to know whether I was interested in coming on the trustees at Roanoke Macon College, I said, well, those people surely have the record up there that would give all indication that I'd be the last one that anybody would be asking to come on the board. He tried to assure me that was not the case. But Bill called and asked, and I met with some of the trustees in Richmond. I reckon I was come look at and glance over a little bit before they confirmed things. But it was a real pleasure for me to have the opportunity to serve on the board.
John, I want to say this about your service as board chairman. I've often said that John Clements was comfortable talking with anybody. It didn't make much difference who they were or their status in life, but he was a great charmer and still is. But he could talk with most anyone or everyone, and that I appreciated very much in you, and so many of your friends do.
Tom. Thank you, Tom. Well, just being a country boy, born and raised in Carson, I was fully 21 years old before I went out of Virginia, so I'll have to say I had that fine thread of connection back to the little village of downtown, of which I'm still a resident of.
And the train still runs through.
Train still. We have 78 trains through Carson, and a lot of the same trains that come through Ashland here. The CSX main line still goes through there.
And you've gotten used to it. Doesn't wake you up.
I will. No, No, when it doesn't run is when I wake up. When everything gets quiet.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad when you were a student you didn't realize you could have hopped on one of those trains and gotten just jumped off right at home. I'm glad you stayed. Now, both of you were on the board during, Mr. Clements especially, during difficult financial times for the college. And you talked a little bit about Ms. McGroom coming on for the library. Can you talk about some of the fundraising efforts you had for the college, capital campaigns, and I know that was a difficult time, and we've gotten through that.
Well, it was, and I'd like to give tribute to some people that had a great deal to do with it. Jimmy Butler was the chairman of the board when I first came on, and the college had really gone through, and we had a several $1 million deficit in the operating side of the budget, and it was something that needed to be done and dealt with. And they had a committee of Jimmy Butler was the chairman of that committee, along with Hunter Jones and some others that met for a year or two to find out what would be the things that they needed to do. And we inherited some good groundwork that was done by when I first came on the board. And so we were able to establish the fact that the college needed to pay off that debt. They put a special effort to make sure that debt was paid off in 2 or 3 years. But they also put in place that they were going to operate under a balanced budget. And I think even today, that string of balanced budgets was started back 15 or 20 years ago. It's still in place, and I think that is probably the best groundwork that anybody could do. And Tom will agree that the special effort by the board at that time was to understand that we had to live within our means, and I salute the board for the continuation of that.
John, you're exactly right, and why don't you tell a story about Jimmy Butler and Ed Estes and how they got the money for the dining hall?
Well, we had Don Holsinger that was going to be the chairman, and Jimmy Butler and Ed Estes, they were in one side of the administration building. And we were meeting over on the other side of the administration building trying to decide what we were going to do. And it looked like two horse traders that I've ever seen in my life between the two. And the rest of the board, we were just there kind of nodding back and forth among ourselves when Ed Estes would give a challenge to Jimmy Butler, and Jimmy would in turn give a challenge back to Ed Estes. So we've got that wonderful dining hall to show the results for that, Tom. And you were very, very much a part of the go-between between the two adversaries.
Yeah, and they were friendly adversaries.
Right.
They grew up. And where were they from?
Chase City.
Chase
City.
And but really did lots of good things for their school. And of course, Jimmy Butler, did he come around up Macon, or just his son?
No. He had. I think one of his sons came here, and the other one I think went to Lehigh, I believe, Lehigh University. But Jimmy had that fine thread of connection back too. He was a Methodist.
Yeah. And
so when you look around and you think about the connection of the Methodist Church back to this college goes way back, but it also goes back and establishes the fact that the connections and the good things that have come to this college have come a long way through that fine thread of connection back to the Methodist Church. I also remember back when they came into I forget what they called this covenant or something, that the conference cooked up among themselves that they wanted to become much closer and much more controlling over what took place. But that was something that the college, and I know we'll forgive of us that were Methodists, were trying to understand. But the covenant did not succeed at the conference on the succeeding year. So we operate now with a real close affiliation, but not a binding one by by any from the college or from the conference.
And I think the way we are operating today is a better way.
Oh, I think so.
Because
I think so. There's no question in the world about it.
Beginning to get rather uncomfortable, I thought. It could have been very
There's no
so.
question about that at that time, and I don't know what the procedure is today, but people were nominated. You and I think, went through that process, nominated, and we were accepted by the conference, or at least voted on at the conference. I don't know the legality of all that, but anyway, it was something that's in place, and I don't know whether that's still in place today or not. But it is a close affiliation, a close connection between the two.
Yeah, which I think is good.
But one of the things that I remember when I was talking about it at Roundup Macon, and one of the things that as I began to think about, I began to make contributions to Roundup Macon through the annual fund, and I think it was only 3 or 4 years in there that I have not contributed, not in the large sums at any time, but at least here again I've had that appreciation for the college and want to do those things through the annual fund. And I think, Tom, you spearheaded that drive on the trustee board on many occasions. For that, we immensely appreciative.
Well, I think I was involved on several occasions, and but I think that that's a very important fund for the school, and it has continued to grow, which I think is great. But I guess I remember back one of the capital campaigns we had that Larry Blanchard headed it up, and
He
that
did.
Was that a $50 million or $100 million campaign?
I think
John?
that was the $50 million when we
And
were
we
working
thought
on that.
at the time, my Lord, can we raise $50 million?
Right.
But we did.
Right, we did.
And that at that time, I grew to like Larry very much, and his wife, and they had a place down on the northern neck, close to us, and we enjoyed many good times with them. So it got to be a great relationship that went beyond Roundup Macon. And but Larry's one that's not with us anymore.
No.
But
I see his wife from time to time at Cedarfield.
yeah, and I understand she's having problems too.
She is,
Yeah.
very much, very much.
But we're getting ready to embark on another campaign officially, I think. It's already started in a big
Right,
way.
it is.
But I rode around this morning and just looked at what is taking place over here on the athletic field, and my goodness, that's going to be a big, big complex. And I feel like we're going to be successful, even though the economic times are certainly not good.
Certainly not with us at the present time. Let's hope for all of us' sake that makes a turn.
That's right. That's right, for many, many reasons.
Thank you. That is very helpful. Mr. Clements, you were on the presidential search committee that brought Liddell Payne to the college, I think. Would you like to talk a little bit about how that evolved?
I would. I was invited to serve. I think Ned Stiles was the one that called me and asked me would I serve on the search committee for the president. And we were going through that process, and there was a committee. And I remember that when we had our first meeting, and I just kind of made in my own mind that Jim Turner would make us a good chairman of that committee. He was a Methodist minister, and was such a strong person, and I felt like would be a fair person on our board of trustees as we sought out the president. And so we looked at about 100 and some people, and we divided it down into groups, and each person on that committee, and I think it was about 10 or 12, maybe as many as 15 people on that, these people. But the process, before we even got to looking at the candidates and everything, we met at the John Marshall Hotel on 3 days, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. So Friday night, about 9 o'clock, everybody was worn clean out, had interviewed a lot of people and talked about the situation, about what we were going to do, and decided the individual that we were looking for. And in came in the last person that we interviewed was Adele Payne at 9 o'clock at night. And everybody was worn out. Well, of course, he came in and just took over the meeting and started interviewing us. And Dr. Turner had to tell him, so, Dr. Payne, we're here to interview you. And we had different questions. And why I was asked, we had a little problem at serving alcohol in the president's home. And so that was a question that somebody had come up with that we needed to ask the president. Will you feel comfortable to serve alcohol in the president's home? Now, that doesn't sound like much of a question, but anyway, that was my question. That was my contribution. Probably the teetotaler in the bunch was going to ask a question about the president, about who. Right. So I can remember asking Adele Payne, well, when we have functions at the president's home, will you feel comfortable with serving alcoholic beverages? And I can remember Dr. Payne, and he kind of straightened up, and in that little grin that he has about him, he says, well, you know, I don't drink red wine, but I will have a spot or two of white wine. And, you know, and on a hot day, I might enjoy just a modest sip or two of a cold beer. And so when I got home that night, I told Lily, I said, well, I don't know whether anybody else thought they picked out a person today, but I saw my president, Dr. Adele Payne, and he was just infectious and really took over and that went on about 6 months, and we went on some personal visits. But anyway, Dr. Payne came, and he gave us the emphasis and the leadership that this college really needed at that time.
He came at a very needed time for the school. Very needed time, and I think made an excellent.
Well, I got a couple of stories to go along with Adele.
Okay.
Though. Adele was we were seated at the big board table, and he was having a conversation. I'm not going to mention the individual that he was having a conversation with, but Adele would defend the position of the college and the things that he had to approach, and we had a gentleman always had to have a word or two to say during our board meetings. That was just a known fact. And so he and Adele got to debating, and Adele, I could see him kind of rising up a little bit and talking back and forth. Until finally when I decided that we had about as much of that as we should need, I reached over and caught him by the coattail and kind of pulled on it. And he sat down, and so he wrote me a little note. Hallelujah, I'm glad you tugged my coattail. I don't have that as evidence of that, but anyway, Adele appreciated that. And then we were calling on a lady here that we'd been working on for a gift to the college, and we decided that we were going to ask for $1 million. So as we went in and discussed it, in the point of time, you go through the little ritual of things that you planned about what we were going to say. And I know we'll forget that later it had been very, very, very generous to us. And so it decided that I was to be the person to ask for the funds that day. And I mentioned $1 million, and this lady says, heavens no, heavens hell no, no, heavens no. So here back last spring when Dr. Payne was here, he still had it on his mind, because he had that when he mentioned over the president's home, but heavens no, heavens no. But anyway, she was very good, very, very, very good.
John, that kind of brings to mind the fact that you and myself and Bill Hodges and lots of our good friends
Right.
were members of Phi Kappa Sigma fraternity.
Right.
And some of the things that took place, I think it's best that we don't discuss.
Oh, I think so today.
But in the initiation of when I went into the fraternity, which was always, we were pledged, I believe it was the first year
Right.
usually that you're at school. And so I joined the fraternity, or to join the fraternity. And one of the things, they had crazy things they wanted you to do. And one of them was for me to have dinner with Dr. Moreland and his family at their home with his 4 or 5 daughters. How many was it? 4 or 5? Four daughters. So at an appointed time, so I go over all dressed up in a coat and tie and slicked down, you know, and it's time for us to have dinner. Now, I was not to make any conversation and all, and felt very, very awkward, you know, for not to make at least some conversation. Well, after we had a very delightful dinner and didn't have any wine or anything, I would say, at the table, but had a wonderful dessert as I remembered, and then after we'd finished, and they were talking amongst themselves and asking me questions, which I didn't answer. So when I finally just got up and pushed my chair back to the table, and I said, "This is the damnest dinner I ever had." And I walked out. Well, no, I wasn't allowed to say anything. Well, they had set it all up, so it wasn't a surprise to them. Well, they, of course, looked shocked, and I felt very embarrassed. but that was one of the things we did, and some of the other things I don't think I want to mention. But it was, but Dr. Moreland, I think, is one that came as a glue that we needed at that time, and he was here when I first came in 1949, and had been here several years. But without a person like Dr. Moreland,
Right.
I'm not sure around of Macon would be here, John.
He did a lot.
He did a lot. He could do more with $1 than most anybody I know of.
He really built the infrastructure that we have today. We've added on to that. But Dr. Moreland, through his time, we'd come through World War II, and with very, very little having been done to the infrastructure of the college going back into the 30s.
Yeah.
And so he took it upon himself, as you said, Tom, with very few dollars, but with the tenacity of getting things done. And a lot of it was done with the workforce that he employed here as the maintenance people here at the college.
Yeah. But he came at a time that we badly needed somebody like Dr. Moreland. And of course, nobody had any money. But he did amazing things.
Well, and that comes back to what some of the things that Dr. Payne put in place too. He saw to it that we had to enlarge administration. They had to enlarge what the job and really what the administration did. That it had to enlarge the board. It put in place a committee system that did not allow things to come before the board because the executive committee met early in the morning, but said 8 o'clock prior to the trustees meeting, and we only took up things that would be items that needed to be administered and voted on at the board. So it because when I first came on the board meetings went on for 6 and 7 hours and 8 hours.
Yeah.
And but this was a way that we could get started about 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning, and then we'd be back by 12 or 1. Well, one of the things that we put in place that was very, very important to the college was the fact that we put a faculty representative. That was Dr. George Oliver, which meant a great deal. And I've heard Dr. Oliver refer back to that hand in glove about the things that need to be done here at Randolph Macon. It put a purpose before the board. It also put a purpose before the Alumni Association and the other individuals that make up the family of Randolph Macon. it put the emphasis on working together and pulling together, and Dr. Oliver was very much a part of that.
And he's still active.
Very much so. Very much so.
I always look forward to visiting with George. He's, I think, a very attractive guy, and known him since, we were at Roundup Macon.
Right.
And,
Was he a classmate of yours? He was a classmate.
yeah, I think he did. He's actually a year or so older than I am, but he, I think he may have, he went to
Duke, I think.
Duke.
And then came right back to Randolph.
But he came back
and he
around
taught me government.
Oh, okay.
No,
Yeah.
no, he was a professor.
Yeah, and a darn good one too. Yeah, I'm just reading. I'm wondering whether he was out in the service for maybe long. I was in the service 2 years. George may have been in it for more than 2 years because he's a little older.
Right.
He may have been in it for 3 or 4.
Right.
I'll have to ask him that. It's a good question.
But he played an action role. He was a good moderator for the rest of the board and the things that were important to the administration, but also things that were important to the faculty. And we had gone through a real tough time between the faculty and the administration.
Well,
We were not privy to a lot of that. But the undertow was still in place, and the importance of Dr. Oliver serving as that first stepping stone and the first representative on the trustee board, and we were able to bring along that the board of associates, the alumni board had seats on the student associate, parents advisory committee, so we were able to enhance the network of people that were working for the college, and having the representatives of the presidents of those associations to be active members and elected members to the trustee board, and that with that in place, then we were able to also put in place the very strong network of the committee structure, and expecting the committees to really work very closely and not have a lot of off the cuff situations when the board met, and brought a situation there that proved very helpful.
But I feel today, as I have for many years, that one of the great pluses with Randolph Macon for a student that's going to come here is the fact of the student-faculty ratio that we have in classrooms, which is very small. I don't know what did I hear like 12 students per faculty?
It's very
low,
very
small number, which I think is so important in having that relationship with your teacher, and the fact that you know perfectly well that with that number of students, you're likely going to be called on every time. And if you think I haven't prepared very well the night before for this class, that's the very time you're going to be called upon, and you'll not be able to answer the question very well.
Yeah, to bring that point home, I have a granddaughter that's at Virginia Tech, and she's in a 3,000 in a freshman math, 3,000. Now yeah. I hope I reckon I'd feel much better if I thought the 3,000 was a mistake, but my daughter assured me that was the number of students, and I reckon it's all done over some type of
class student. If you want to go to the class, you go. If you don't want to go, I guess you just don't go. Nobody's checking on you. But I think at Roundup Macon, through the years, if you weren't attending class on a regular basis, somebody's going to come check on you. Are you sick? Why aren't you here? Which I think.
Well, we didn't. We just had a no cut situation.
Yeah.
People talk about cuts, but there was no such thing as a cut.
Yeah.
you want to talk about any particular faculty members you remember, classes, or?
Oh, well, I guess one of my favorites that come to mind was Dr. Mabry.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'll have to echo that too. He's one of my favorites here too, Tom.
But he always made time for you if you had a question or something out of his that involved his class, or even if it didn't involve his class, some reason you wanted to talk to somebody. He was that person that I felt very close to, and I thought he was an excellent teacher, and I enjoyed him very much, and stayed in touch with him for some time after I got out of school. And of course, he'd been gone for many years.
Right.
I don't know how long, but a long time. But he was certainly one of them. Yeah. John, you remember Mary Blackwell's place we ate across from the Fire Cap House?
Certainly, right across the street.
You know, we'd always be running late to get to a class in the morning. You know, classes, I guess, started 7:30, 8 o'clock, something like that. And Mary was this real large lady that had this boarding house there. And that's all gone now. They're home, and she has too. But my goodness, you'd run out there with you putting a sweater on or a coat on or something, half dressed, and say, "Mary, give me a egg real quick." She would, but she said, "You boys will drive me crazy." But she'd always come up with these greasy eggs, and everything was greasy. But she got us through it. She was
went to a boarding house for your meals.
At the time, you had that, and I think we were.
We were in the process. I think the first year I was here was the first year when the cafeteria was open. But some of the boarding houses were still hanging around, because the main place they ate was the old hotel that had burned just a few years before that, down on the railroad track, which was a lot. But the cafeteria was in place, and that's one of the buildings that Dr. Moreland built with his workforce here at the college.
Yeah.
And the same door that you went into the dining room is I walked by it the other day. I think it's now is the weight room or the old dining hall. What's you used to? Do you know what the
Is it connected with where the athletes have their own training?
Right. Well, that was a dining hall. No, and another thing about the dining hall that I don't have to think about Mrs. Lowry, which was the manager there, and she was one of the students, so to speak, because she got along with the students real well. And when Bill Brothers went in one night when we were going through the dining hall line, he said, Ms. Lowry, I've got a complaint. And she said, Bill, you got a complaint about everything every night you come in here. What's your complaint tonight? Well, if I'm going to have fly soup to eat, I want to have more than one fly in my soup. Tom will remember Bill.
Oh, yeah, Bill was... He's no longer with us either.
He was a part of the mafia from Suffolk.
And Al Curry.
Oh, Al Curry. Right.
I never did quit figure Al out. He had lots of mysterious things going on in his life.
He did. He
was a pilot in the Air Force during World War II. And did he fly a plane in here one time and land?
Oh yeah, he did that. Well, when I knew Al, he was in between here and Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
I don't know whether he worked for the oil company or he worked for the individual too.
And Al, no, not Al. Newton, John.
Yeah. Chuck Newton.
Chuck Newton. What was the story? Do you remember the story about Chuck going to Dr. Bowen's Latin class with his formal dress on, his
well, that was at 8 o'clock on a Saturday morning.
Yeah, and
during cotillion, and of course we'd had a little bit of cider or something on Friday night, and Chuck probably had brought along a little of that all to his Latin class, but I think he was asked in the Latin class to conjugate a verb, and so Chuck starts off with 7 up, Coca-Cola, RC drink, orange drink, and Dr. Boy said, Mr. Newton, I don't think we're in the right class today.
we had some characters. But you know, in 46 when I came, once again you go back to talk about Dr. Moreland, you had all age groups. You had boys coming back from the service who came back as a senior.
Right.
Well, they were 23 or 4 years old, maybe 25 years old. A lot of them were married. Mm-hmm. And then you had a group that came in right out of high school, and then you had some all in between. Mm-hmm. But that was a wide range of ages. Mm-hmm. That were coming in, and some of them coming in as freshmen even, but had never had gone to college, but went from high school to the service. And that was a difficult time, which I admire Dr. Moreland for being able to handle that.
But you know, the returning veterans were a real glue that brought the school together, Tom. That they came with a purpose. They wanted to enjoy themselves. But at the same time, was a seriousness about them that meant a lot to that school. Dr. Moreland captured that seriousness and then instilled that in the rest of the student body. I think that's one of our pluses.
Yeah, I think it was. I think it was really. I've always been amazed at how we blended it all. But as you say, these people that came back, having been out of in the service for several years, who when they were drafted, weren't making the best grades either.
Well, they had to step back a little bit too and do the things that we were. While we had compulsory coming to chapel.
Yeah.
And you had a little slip of paper that you had to sign. Yeah. And of course, so people that were just out of high school and just back from the service. Everybody blended together though and pulled together, did those things, and we still had those little rat caps.
Yeah, that's right.
And
that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. You still got yours?
Yeah, I still do. I ran across it here about 6 months ago, so I laid it up on the dresser there, and every now and then I take a look. I haven't tried it on lately, but anyway, I've got it in place.
Well, you haven't got quite as much hair as you
No,
but you still got a good head of hair.
Right. No.
Compared to mine.
Right.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned about the veterans, because that is a real moment in the college's history.
Very much so.
Oh, yeah. And I think at this point, I'm really pleased with what I'm hearing about our president today, Dr. Lindgren. Bob Lindgren.
I am too.
I think when you talk to people that are associated with the school in one way or another, I don't find anybody from student body, staff, faculty that's not pleased with him. And
no, he's a part of I call it a three-legged stool, really. You've got the president on one leg, and you've got the student body, and then you've got the faculty.
Yeah.
And if they don't, you get one off a little bit or one pejored a little bit, things just don't pull together. But from everything that I see and everything the president appreciates the students appreciate the faculty, and so it's well, I reckon it could be a little scary because it's something that, but I think he brings something to the table that
we needed.
Yeah. Needed.
Yeah.
There's an article in the paper today about the president being selected to a board of the independent colleges in Virginia, and he's very active in the Methodist college association,
Right.
and he's really put Randolph-Macon College out there on the map. Besides all the good work he's done internally, he's really been a great ambassador for us externally.
Well, I think he's. I think Bob Lindgren has already put Randolph-Macon on the map to a great degree.
Right.
In the last few years since he's been here. It's my observation that we're getting lots of newspaper publicity about Randolph-Macon and things we are having up here today that I think are wonderful. But it's something that we needed because we're in competition with schools that got lots of money and can do lots of things and bring in lots of talent along the way. But and maybe we had been short on it because simply we didn't have the funds to do it with. But I think he's got a vision for the school that I think is very important, and I think is beginning to show itself in a significant way.
Well, any final memories or anecdotes or stories that you'd like to share about your time as a student or on the board? Or I've enjoyed hearing the personal stories. Anything else that comes to mind?
No, Randolph-Macon is just is Tom. I know that Tom and his family it's just wonderful for me to have the opportunity to sit here with Tom. I've known the Birdsong family for a long time. We've had modest business relationships, but I've had an opportunity to get to know a lot of the family and to be able to have an opportunity to sit in and to reminisce a little bit is a special to me. But it's infectious, and I think all the people that have allowed themselves to get infected with what Randolph-Macon is and what it does, and participate in the wonderful things that the college and administration and the faculty bring to as far as what Randolph-Macon is. They have a much better life and a much better appreciation for what it's all about. And you gather a whole lot more than you're ever able to put back in the kitty, so to speak.
Yeah. Oh, I think, John, those gracious comments you made about my family, I appreciate. But the same goes for you and your family.
Well, thank you.
What John Clements has done for this school, the fact that John is such a popular, nice guy, he has brought so many good things to this school, and John knows an awful lot of people that have helped with Randolph-Macon, but mainly because of your interest and your contacts that this has been possible. But I would hope that along the way that we don't lose what we think is so great about the school. We don't want to get too large, and although I think we perhaps now is the time with Bob Lindgren and his leadership and others on the board to increase the enrollment here, and maybe the economics of it say that that's necessary. But with the new athletic program that we have and what is being built, I think we can attract that student that we could not attract here just a few years ago, and to make a decision. But I still am very much in favor of liberal arts education. I think it gives one a stepping stone to involve himself or herself in life and whatever pursuits they may want to make, and that sometimes I don't think you get with too much specialty. But the fact that you have you graduate from here with a degree, and I think you've been exposed to excellent leadership good faculty, good school, and I hope that we can keep it that way.
Well, I'm not going to sign off until I acknowledge the fact that I do have a grandson that is at Randolph Macon this year, the freshman. So this fine, as my father always said, the fine thread of connection will at least go through this generation one more time.
I think that's fine. I hope he likes the school.
Oh, he's real happy. And I bought him a good care package from home from his mother today.
Yeah, wonderful. That's wonderful.
Well, I think that's a nice place to end. Just continuing the thread, the generations going on, and we thank you so much, both of you, for participating in Making Memories.